What's up, PlayStation Universe, and welcome to episode 31 of PlayStation Fix, our first video podcast. Actually, full video.
In the flesh, by the way.
Yeah.
Does this
Yeah,
actually
first
mark
time.
the very first PlayStation Fix where we're all sitting in the same little
First time,
squad?
because last year it was Unchained. We did a special edition for.
That's true. That's true.
And that wasn't video, so
It's going to sound better than ever.
landmark
More
episode.
content than ever, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
and it helps that we have.
Four
I don't even know
gorgeous
how we
men
even-
behind the corner of the stable.
Well,
I
it was
don't want
like-
to say, but
the-
yeah.
I
We're all
mean,
thinking it.
so obviously we're going to talk about the Sony conference, and this is just going to go on until we're done talking, because it's like we have no idea how long this is going to go.
Get a
for.
coffee.
It's already off the
We
rails.
get to
Everything
talk
goes.
as much as we want because we deserve it.
Oh, relax.
We're each allotted one random bathroom break, and we say nothing as we get up and just depart from the conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Afraid.
it's there was so much, guys. There was so first off, there was no way I think any of us thought this would even come close to competing to last year's conference,
I just
and
think,
it equaled and or exceeded in certain aspects.
I think the most important aspect, kind of just from the offset, is just how it was structured.
Yeah,
In the face of how Microsoft came out kind of bullishly and like announced 2 new consoles, one of which is holiday next year. This like massively powered machine that was obviously in retaliation of the fact that the Neo had leaked early, and then you have Sony that just says, okay, we're not going to talk about partnerships, we're not going to talk about DLC, we're not going to talk about, we're going to mention that we're going to show release dates and trailers, but we're not going to say anything. We're literally just going to show games because
Right.
that's what you play games. There's no
Right.
there's no other like politics around it. Game.
Yeah, this is why you're watching. You want to find out about all these new games. We're going to let the games speak for themselves. You know, we're not going to lecture or, have a PR spiel. We're just
Yeah.
going to show them. And that was awesome.
Before we get
That's
too
great.
far, I realized that I'm in video mode where we have this up.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't introduce ourselves for all the people who are listening in the audio form. So
It's not the first time.
Right. So, sorry about that for the beginning, but I'm Will Robinson, hosting this right now, and we got our 3 lovely senior editors that are with me on this trip. On my left, we got Ernest Lynn. On right, we got Kyle Prawl. And farther right, we got Adam Byrne.
Which would be Wika. No, that's
No,
It doesn't really work, does it?
Uka. EWKA, if we did in the order. If I started
Oh, yeah,
first,
you
but
did
in the
first,
order
yeah,
that we're
yeah.
sitting
sort of
around.
cross-
Wika Force.
Yes,
PlayStation
that's
Fix.
Yeah, right.
They got to make a new thumbnail.
Anyway, yeah, but the structure of the Sony conference, yeah, it was just games. There was no.
We've sold 45 million. Nothing like.
Well, they said that they were talking about the 40 million install base.
Well, yeah, they
but
clearly
but
mentioned
they
there
had
was no
they
like
were-
actual announcement.
Part of it was
And
the
even-
setup of the stage.
And even the way they mentioned that 40 million, that was actually, there was just the slightest hint of snark on Sean Layden's part, because it was, we have given the very best graphical tech. It was the VR
Yeah, they're talking
connection,
about
so
the-
it was,
yeah.
so it was, we have given technology capable of doing this VR experience in our already, and they used the word already a couple times to just hammer to real. It was so subtle, but it was totally there, of like a response to the Neo rumors about how PS4 was not powerful and developers were having a problem with it, which might still be the case, but it was still just like a
Yeah, and I mean,
subtle
a
nod
lot
to
of
that
that
conversation.
was, I mean, a lot of my skepticism of terms of like capability of the PS4 for VR stuff was completely disproven after what we saw after the conference, which we'll
Yeah.
talk about in some of our other videos. We're not going to really dive into that, but yeah, it was just the whole thing was like there were no developers that came out and talked.
Yeah.
It was basically, besides Kami Kojima, God.
And then
Kojima
it sort of had
Kojima,
the
huh?
playthrough of
Yeah, up on that balcony. I thought that was
yeah, there's
interesting.
two guys that are up
I wonder
there.
why that was an odd aside, because this was the very end when they did Days Gone, real live playthrough, and they had him up in that balcony in this very kind of old school Los Angeles auditorium where they had the conference, and I'm like, they made a point, at least for us sitting there, of like bringing the spotlight down on those guys,
Yeah.
and they didn't.
They
do
didn't
much
talk
with it,
about
which
them,
was-
introduce them,
yeah.
anything like that. They were just up there playing the game.
You know, the games, that whole theme, and this is something that the 4 of us have been talking about for the first day and a half here, is just that even when in the previous conferences people were showing games, when Ubi was showing games and Microsoft was showing games, the CG has really been dominating this year so far. And 95% of Sony's conference was actual gameplay.
Yeah.
Like the CG moments were just hardly even there. It was
They
just
had
live
a
stuff.
lot of CG in most of the stuff they did, but they followed it immediately with gameplay.
yeah.
So they justified everything they did, saying like, don't be skeptical, because here it is. Yeah. And it was just like, okay. That was
I guess they can afford to do that. Like, they are the trendsetter at the moment. Everybody's trying to catch up to them, so like they can afford to just like Microsoft have to like their hand is, as we mentioned, their hand is forced with like releasing a new console or like announcing one, like showing like we are trying to like get up there and stuff. So Sony can kind of just lead by letting the games just do the talking.
So first, before we talk about the games themselves, we'll start about how the conference even started. They were at a new location this year, the Shrine Auditorium, very ornate setting, but didn't allow for a lot of the screens and stuff of the past where they had all the monitors everywhere and all that stuff, and that was, and they had a full-blown orchestra, which is like the first time in conference history where it was just like, the entire show was played by orchestra. Yeah, like virtually. The music for all of the trailers and everything was
that's crazy to think that they had sheet music from all those titles.
Yeah.
One Winged Angel.
Right?
That's right. That was your thing right from the beginning.
Yeah. But then, that's how they started it with this amazing performance by this orchestra. Great. And it was like, we were trying to...
choir
we were,
on the side
that was really, really cool. And we were trying to pinpoint what this would be. And God of War flashed in my head a little bit, but I was like, no, this isn't it. And I was like, oh, Horizon. And I was like, that has to be Horizon. They'll just start with that, go on. And it was just like... No, there's this little kid. Who the hell is this little kid that's on here? Who is that voice that's coming? And all of a sudden, Kratos. And I was like,
comes from the shadows.
Oh my god!
I still maybe thought it was Horizon up until you saw the dark silhouette of Kratos within that.
I was like,
lodge or whatever.
I was like, is this? I was like, oh, is this like her son or like later on, or is this like some? Which
would have been really cool. Ally being a mother and everything.
Well, I was like,
in the tribe. What's your? I want to hunt some dinosaurs.
But.
The orchestra, though, that was a crazy awesome thing. It was, and it really served to differentiate the conference from the things we've seen. Again, not only because of the gameplay and how awesome all these titles and debuts were, but just the mere setting of it was a total tonal shift from the super synthetic LED light shows. It was very much like a classical, and they actually used like physical sets to like amplify. What was
that was really
really
cool and really well done.
It enabled Hideo Kojima to walk down to us on a path of light. Just absolute.
Just send down.
I'm about to say it was cringy as hell. Like nobody else.
Oh no, man! I dug that. That was great. That was awesome.
I love the man too. Come on.
I mean, it was the cheesiest thing that they've probably ever done at a conference, but it was just like.
We get his standing, but like, come on.
It was so awesome.
Especially for a game that literally is about like 2.5 years, 3 years away, like. Still, though, if you've got that ace in the pack, Kojima, but if you've got that ace in the pack, you got to show it,
Yeah. I wonder how long they worked on that single scene with Norman Reedus that we saw. Like how much development was put into that single cutscene.
Yeah.
Probably.
How many takes Kojima made him?
Considering he was shopping for actual.
Maybe he literally took the skeleton wireframe of that scene on his World Tour of studios and just like asked the studio. How can you make this look? How can you make this look? Yeah. Like already the concept cutscene from the get-go.
Yeah. But we'll run through the games in order of appearance as best we can. So obviously, God of War started the show. We
with a bang.
We predicted. I think most of us predicted that God of War was going to make an appearance for sure.
Right? I think a lot of our predictions were pretty on point.
There's some. I think half of mine were out the window because my biggest one was about Neo showing up and Horizon being
the main cost.
One of the things and that was like. Which, I mean, totally didn't care that Neo was not at the show at all.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm happy that it wasn't.
Would have distracted. If anything, it would have tainted from the fact that we were seeing all these gorgeous games, and then it's like all of a sudden we show Neo, and it's like, wait, so did everything you show us, is that going to look like that on PS4? But now we have assurances it would absolutely.
Why would you show on the back of Scorpio?
Everything that was shown today was elevated from what's been shown before, for the most part. Like God of War... Gosh, how can that look better? Like how? Like I can't even understand how that would really be elevated on like a 4K like how you could even really comprehend it, like see it with your eyes. I mean, for the analog for the digital resolution that they're trying to get to.
What was really special about God of War for me was there's two pillars here, right? And it kind of comes from where I was never the biggest fan of God of War leading up to today. Kratos wasn't all, and we've talked about this on the cast before. Kratos was not the most interesting character in my book.
He's a terrible character.
Hard to get you up behind your boy. Kratos.
I love Kratos and I love God of War, but you have to accept that. He's a shallow character.
And I certainly didn't have any problem with God of War's gameplay because it was always just a really smooth action experience. Yeah. But in this game, both of those things are taking a very big departure. Like we got a lot of intimate human moments with Kratos and his son, including some of the facial and body expression things that we're starting to see more of in games. Like Uncharted's a great example of that, like subtle cues that actually convey more than the characters would by speaking. Yeah. And we saw some of that in the trailer with God of War, with Kratos, reaching to his son's back, deciding better of it for whatever reason. He doesn't want to show weakness. He thinks it will
and
be
just
cheesy.
self-control.
Yeah. That was his rage building when
exactly.
When child shoots first.
Yeah, in the upper left corner, if you paid attention to the trailer, there was a little icon when he starts to get angry at the sun. There's a little icon up there that showed. I don't remember what the symbol was. If it was like the new
it was kind of hard
logo
to tell
or whatever,
from
but it was like it started rising and like it was clear, and then it started filling up with red, and then as soon as he took a breath, and it started slowly going back down. So it was like a rage meter basically. So it's like what goes on when that goes off.
So there was the tonal shift in the story and the characters for me, and that's something clearly Santa Monica's taken some cues from some of the really outstanding PlayStation exclusives in recent years, like The Last of Us and Uncharted, but also the gameplay shift, and it's badass. Like it looked amazing in the trailer. I really am curious to see how it plays and see whether it holds up and it feels as deep and as fluid as the original God of War did. But either way, I'm just pleased to see them going. Like it's a reboot in the truest sense, and they're not really. It feels like they're not clinging to like the vestiges of what God of War has been, and it's very much like
they're acknowledging it though. Like clearly they're
they're
acknowledging it, but they're not committing. They're not restraining themselves or restricting themselves to that.
They're willing to say, let's start over in Norse mythology. Let's re-examine the vision of who Kratos and his legend is, and let's do it with combat that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Like that's really amp up.
That's pretty much I don't know if it was technically a prediction of mine, but that's like exactly what I was hoping for. Is that my prediction was that they have an opportunity now to make him a really deep character, and that's exactly what they're showing that they're trying to do.
Taking
I think we knew there was going to be a shift. I was thinking that perhaps he could be the antagonist or something and then you are some new protagonist, but
like a side character, who's sort of bringing in some new generation, protagonist. Yeah.
But as I mentioned with Colin, we've mentioned again on episodes prior to this. Like I was exhausted with the series past 2 pretty much. Like I played 3 a little bit, but even just the over the shoulder camera angle difference, the kind of like parallels with The Last of Us with the Ellie like hunting the elk or the deer, whatever it was,
and the guardianship kind of emotions.
Yeah, like even these little touches and stuff, and like that little relationship, it gave me more characterization of Kratos than I've seen in the 2 games that I played like fully.
Yeah.
And that was great. Like that was brilliant. I was really impressed by it.
I noticed small, especially when you're fighting the troll on that frozen pond, that was kind of the big set piece fight of the demo. I noticed things about the way Kratos sidesteps the boss, rolls backward against the boss that actually did, and I was thinking in those moments, you pull the camera out and make it more of a top-down thing, that does look like God of War combat if you just look at like the lateral movement of what he's doing, and it's really, and it looks sluggish when you're just kind of walking through the forest, but then it suddenly gets really fast when you're able to use your mobility in interesting ways.
And just the new weapons that they're completely removing the blades of chaos, which
I was hoping that Spartan Rage would bring those out.
But that's the other thing too. Okay, that was so awesome. Yeah. That Spartan. Okay, so that's one of the things is like how much of this is is this completely a new story for like a new Kratos that's just totally Norse? But if so, why would it be called Spartan Rage?
Yeah.
And what's the deal with the paint and the tattoo on it? Is this an older Kratos that's
I think it's older.
That's still continuing through the same world and a different
set? And if it is in fact an older Kratos and exists within the same universe, then when he says a new beginning, that makes me wonder what the role of the child is, and if there's a greater importance to that than just being this,
and also
this
how
avatar.
The hell did the world stay together when all of the gods were killed and then the world was just like in apocalypse mode?
And how do you explain, if that is the same Kratos, who is this boy? Who is the mother that they reference? Because we know that doesn't really make sense with God of War lore, right?
Ghost Athena.
Just so many unanswered questions, and I tried to glean more information from the PlayStation blog afterwards. There was a really heartfelt letter written by the game's producer or creative director about the journey to this new God of War. But kudos to them for one, keeping the finer points of this very well shrouded in mystery. I mean, all we really had leading up was the Norse concept art leaked quite a while ago. Yeah. Which made it seem plausible. And I mean, if we were to see God of War, that's probably the direction it was going to go. Mm-hmm. But there's still so much. I think it's probably the biggest compliment I can pay to the demo that there's so much more to learn about it, and I actually care about all of those questions. Whereas I would not have felt that way about like Ascension or God of War 3. Right. It would have just been a passing moment for me.
And there's dragons.
And there's dragons. Like, what in the world?
Dragon just shows up at the end. It's like,
oh, you said a dragon. That's a dragon. Oh, dragon.
Yeah,
I
thought for sure it was just gonna like stay out in the back. Like you see it kind of like circled in the trailer we're dead, and then it's like, oh, it's getting. Oh, like, it's right here. It's
crazy. Crazy. Well, there's some fine. So one thing I thought was interesting was earning points in an RPG fashion.
The whole
so cunning plus 50, archery plus 50. Yeah. Now here's the interesting thing.
Discovering locations.
You earn archery, definitely, and all the fonts coming up there. It's just very clean presentation. Visually looked awesome.
Absolutely.
The archery plus 50 appeared when the child shot that arrow. Yeah. And that got me along that line of thinking of like, okay, the kid's important in some way, right? Mm-hmm. And when Kratos has a new beginning, like, is this literally going to be a thing where Kratos is our introduction to a new universe for like the first half of the game, and then we jump forward in time to like this kid being an important figure of some kind?
The only other thing I can think of is maybe the kid has his own
there's a separation mechanic or something like that.
He's got his own skill tree or level up. You know, he can level up on his own.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, big parts where he has to goes on his own and has to fend for himself for a bit.
Yeah, and the gameplay shifts, and he's not as powerful, obviously, and he has to maybe stealth.
But just the animations and like the first encounter with the troll was just insane. Where he pulls him down, screams at him in some like Norse and sells Valhalla at the end, and then Kratos chucks him off to the side, lunges up and smashes his horn off with his elbow, really grabs him, pulls him down, slams the head, and the whole face just shakes as it hits. Oh my god.
It's funny, just like the combat pulling little nods to classic God of War, you get that same vibe of like Kratos' extensive, really bloody, powerful kills, except in a more grounded way. But it still feels very Kratos. It's not so
to
cartoony.
Be able to do that. It's just like he's just a powerful man in a real world.
And
he's just
like don't seem as contrived for some reason.
Sure.
I think it's because you're just more invested in what's actually happening. As I said, they've given the characterization to
and just
Kratos.
The camera pull and just changing that a little bit creates a whole new feeling. Like that's like those first two characters.
I mean, narrative, right? I mean,
just the first time when like he pulls the axe out and then it glows, and then he hits a couple times. That whole animation, the first guy where he's hits, swing, comes down. Other guy shows up, takes it, throws it at the guy, pins him to the wall, and then just starts beating the shit out of another guy. Just with the fist, and it pulls in really visceral. And then he comes back, walks over. Hand out, axe is back. It was oh my god!
And having the kid there also adds a sense of danger and tension. You know, definitely. Because the kid can get hurt, you have to watch out.
Yeah, when he runs you see the investment where the troll comes, or the first guys come up, and then he runs in and pulls the kid back.
The universe has me intrigued as well because the deer had glowing blue eyes.
The magic of the creatures in the world,
right? Which I would
life force of the creatures.
Right. I would expect that from some of the figures, like maybe the troll or some of the god-like figures that I'm sure you'll meet throughout the game. But even in like the animals, like just some.
But even the kid too, when he shot the arrow, and it was the bolt of lightning that hit the troll.
That's
shot
right.
Out of it.
Yeah,
It's invested in the entire world and all of the creatures there, like as a norm. It's not just like a specialized thing. At least with what we saw, it's normative among all of those creatures and beings that were in the trailer.
Yeah.
So it's just a really, really awesome setup that they're establishing.
Yeah.
That could turn into something like honestly, right now from what's here, could easily turn into a Last of Us caliber game where it is.
Yeah, I have to say I'm surprised.
Like it's. I could not believe that I'm as excited for this as I am.
I mean, yeah, me as well. Like especially not coming from the same place of like serious fandom as you. Like, I can't think of a better way for them to.
You could cherry pick any the best part of God of War is the set pieces and the scale.
Yeah,
and they didn't show that.
And it was still fantastic.
That's the thing is like they didn't show the best part of God of War.
Yeah.
And they might not even need it in the final game. You might have much less of those things. And
there definitely will be those moments for sure. Like there'll be those gigantic, monumental moments that happen. But it's like I don't care at this point.
It's crazy
because they're doing so well.
You can cherry pick any of the games that we're going to talk about to be like conference openers.
Yeah.
Like you really, really could. But it's just a testament to how well this showed that I'm like I'm all in on God of War.
Yeah,
I thought I would say that.
And I think we probably should move on from God of War because we're 20 minutes in and we've only talked about.
Well,
it's off the rails. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about that all night, but next game that came up was Sony Ben's new game.
Finally.
Days Gone.
See what Ben has been working on up in Oregon.
Which we got a taste of it at the beginning, and we didn't really get to see anything about what it was, just that it was post-apocalyptic, the world's kind of end, this guy's a mercenary. There was a really touching thing with... That whole trailer was actually really well done and really touching.
Yeah, the trailer was nice.
Where he's talking about all the things that's going on, and all of a sudden it's like showing him riding on the motorcycle with his girlfriend, wife, whoever it was,
element.
And then the sentimentality of that, and then just being like, now you're gone, I'm a mercenary, and I got a job to do.
Yeah, it's funny. I heard the developers talking afterward about how they're huge fans of Sons of Anarchy. And that's something that's a vibe that they really want to put in the game. I'm like, I totally got that, right? But it's interesting to see how it's like you don't just have stock characters that you drop into a post-apocalyptic universe. They have very much like, perhaps even more so than like let's take The Last of Us as an example. It's easy to parallel the settings, but when you drop Joel into the world of The Last of Us, he's just Joel, and we don't really know much about him, and the game doesn't care to tell us like what his career was, like what his work situation was, and like all these things about his life. With this, it feels like the characters that wear the biker jackets and still have that as an important part of their identities, they hold on to that in the apocalypse as if it's a core part of their thing. They don't want to let go of it, and it's all they know. And it's cool to have this element of their lives from
Sense
before.
of brotherhood, I guess.
Yeah, so that at least felt kind of refreshing to me, that these characters have a clearly established background.
So it seemed like there were moments where there could be choices in this game, like how you deal with people. If there are, like, you can choose. Like there was one moment where there was a guy, like he's talking about what things were like and how it was and then how it is now, and then like there was a moment where there was a guy, he had a gun pointed at his head, and then the guy kind of begged for his life for the part, and he was kind of teetering on decision. Like that could be a totally scripted thing, which it probably would be, but it seemed like it could lean towards that too for some of the like having decisions in the world.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully we did get that gameplay demo at the end, so we could actually see what it ends up playing like.
Yeah, know what the game is.
And
we didn't know there were zombies or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a dissenting opinion, but I think it was probably not the biggest letdown of the show, but I wasn't too impressed with the game.
It looked the least polished, I'll say that.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of things, and there's a lot of impressive, just in terms of the volume of the zombies that were chasing you at that end. I mean, we're talking 300 independently animated zombies, so kudos for that. But like, there was significant, as they were climbing over obstacles, zombies would just kind of like clip through each other.
I was gonna say the animation,
run past the protagonist.
That was the one thing that seemed kind of strange, where like he just kind of walked jaunted
through the
right
crowd
through
a little
like
bit,
3 or 4 of them, and they're just kind of like, oh,
because I mean, it just depends on how effective it can be. Because like even with The Last of Us, even the start of it, where you're like, you're holding your daughter and you're running, and there's only 2 or 3, like it's pretty scripted. There's only 2 or 3 infected chasing you, but you have that sense of urgency. And with this game, you have 200-300, and it's just it doesn't seem to be that weight.
Part of it could have been, since it was a live demo, they just toned down some of the AI.
Oh, certainly.
So that you could just get to the end.
Yeah,
and not have to worry about it. So I mean, that easily could be a thing. But
there were some pretty close calls in that demo.
Yeah, and you didn't seem to be too worried and let them just get like right next to them. Where most zombie games, you would like if they would get it within 5 feet, you run like hell, and he is just kind of like.
I just don't see anything kind of new coming from it.
No,
beyond the fact that there is so many zombies on screen. But you have that with the likes of Dead Rising. You're looting a bit.
Yeah.
Standard third-person fare, talking to people, like scrapping around the landscape to like pick up survival things. Like
it really did feel like The Last of Us, though, in a lot of ways. In terms of like and like walking through, having the gun, gun in the side and pulling the gun out as he's walking, going through, and
animation wise,
just like a lot of that stuff felt really similar. Which is, I mean, I think that's good, but yeah, there wasn't anything that was inspired to me.
Familiar is the vibe I got from it, and I have some
too familiar. I would say.
Maybe
maybe
straddling that line. I have some tone questions too about the game. The first half of the trailer really, or its first appearance in the show as the second item, felt like narrative was the focus, and that's when I was getting those Last of Us vibes. In the gameplay demo at the end, it almost pushed like that Dead Rising level of like absurdity, and I'm just like, you are literally mowing these guys down in like a very video gamey fashion.
And there was no, like, one of the things that just seemed off to what it was trying to feel like gritty and real, for at least what it was portrayed in the first trailer, was that he just like had infinite bullets. As he's like walking through, it's just like, where are these coming from? It's like his infinite reloads.
Yeah, there's no clips or anything.
They're trying to find things in like trucks and stuff, just like
it's just like, it looked like, oh, they're scavenging in it, and it's just like, but
then all of a sudden it gets very Dead Right. Like,
it was just
so Dead Right.
It's just like totally like video game. It's just like really turned into that.
And that's when my interest really dropped.
Because I mean, you see in the last one, like, less is more. Like, and we always used to say with Resident Evil as well, like, when we'll get onto that, but like, if you just can make it a little bit more reductive and like bring in alleyways, one enemy in like a narrow corridor is far more effective than like a wide area with like 20 of them running through a window, you know,
or in the Last of Us,
300 in a barn.
Like, it's
or
the
in
same
Last
thing.
of Us, where certain ones can just kill you when hit with the clickers, you know.
For sure.
You have to be extremely careful and tactical.
I'm just thinking about that first time with the clickers. That was like the most terrifying thing in a game ever.
That sound,
especially the survival mode. You can't see them anywhere. I don't know if there's anything really else to add to it. It was I
just hope the best for that game. And I mentioned on our E3 predictions cast, like, this is Ben Studios' first console blockbuster. And I could feel it a little bit in just the level of polish that this demo had, which is surprising considering that they've presumably been working on this game for at least 2 or 3 years.
So I don't find it unpolished at all. I just find it
uninspired.
I
think there's some with like the zombie animations, and I'm pretty sure I saw the frame rate kind of dip, and it just didn't.
I feel like this is going to be the opposite of what The Order was for Ready at Dawn. It was like, it's like everybody was like super amped for it because the story was cool, the premise was cool, it looked beautiful. Gameplay was crap. This, I think it's not as inspired, it's not as interesting for a lot of people because it's done so much, but I think the gameplay is going to turn out to be really good. I think it'll be a surprise.
It should be a fun video game.
I think it's going to be really fun, but it's not going to sell itself with enough of a reason to buy it, especially with how congested things are going to be.
It'll probably be the most like solid 7.58 you'll get. Pretty much. To be fair, everybody loves those 8 out of 10 games. Like Sleeping Dogs is an 8 out of 10 game. I love it. You know?
It's going to have I think it's going to get a really good reception for the people that play it, and critically solidly.
I just don't think it will resonate. It won't hit that chord that makes everybody just kind of stand back and say, "Oh, wow."
Yeah,
you need to play this.
Anyway, the next game that people have been waiting for forever. We actually did get an official release date for this.
Yes, we did. October 25th.
Yep, and that is The Last Guardian.
4 days before my birthday.
Baby. Is it really?
Yeah.
That's
and something's playing on the 28th as well. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Either way,
my big takeaway from this trailer and what differentiated it from the games showing last year was that there, like, narrative felt at the front of this.
Yep.
It's still vague because that's the Team Ico way, and we don't really want to know a ton about the story. Certainly not. But we saw a few things we've never seen before. We saw the dark Trico, the shadow Trico.
Yeah, that was like a what the hell moment for me.
Absolutely. We saw.
Yeah, because they first said it was like this is supposed to be like the last of its kind, or when they were talking about Trico to begin with, like a long time ago. They were like, this is the last one in here. They find the relationship.
We saw an illusion.
That's what I'm thinking. It might be something like that. But
we saw a really pulled out view of the game setting, which is actually literally takes place inside this massive, like, hollowed out cylinder of a crater. Like, that's what we see when we first zoom in from the skies.
Yeah.
Which is cool because it makes me think of the spire at the center of Shadow of the Colossus, which you get to explore at the very, very end, and you ascend to the top of the citadel and you see a little bit. You just get a flavor for, like, why you're there. Still very vague, but we got a hint of that kind of deeper story here. As well as enemies that you face off against that were like these animated statues. They almost look like Shogun warriors a little bit with the fanned out helmets that they had.
Yes.
So just speaking to something
Animation is
like
back.
there's more going on in the game at least than we knew going into this, and so this was a good showcase for that.
Yeah, and they had some really good set pieces too, like the one where Trico's like falling down the tower. Like I actually felt like kind of desperate when that was happening. It was just this random little clip, and it looks like it's got some great key moments that'll just really pull you into what's happening.
I think they could show 20 hours of this game, and I'd still think it's a mystery.
Yeah,
like, I just,
yeah, you can play it and be like,
I literally
don't know
just
what
need
happened.
to sit down with it. Like they could show so much footage. Like it's
so.
I'm glad we have a release date. It's here,
not explicit about its story. Especially since there's no, as far as we know, any kind of understandable dialogue.
Yeah.
It's all conveyed through action movements.
Which is true to the Team Eco tradition, and that's kind of what makes those games surreal and special.
Right.
At this point, I'm all in. Like, I'm ready to play that game, and just seeing these small story beats gives me greater confidence that it is going to, at least in narrative, live up. And I just had, like, my heart broke in this tiny little scene where you see Trico, like, whimpering and, like, weak on the ground, and, like, the boy comes over to him, and I'm just like, I swear to you, I damn near teared up, because it was just like watching a pet become hurt, and like what can you do? You're helpless to like
and you're
help an animal.
Pet, like given like when we first saw the game.
Nice.
The only thing that bothers me is the kid's eyebrows. Just weird.
You guys said that about the art style as we were sitting here.
Well, he didn't look like that before.
I think in general it's just a little bit of jang too.
Well, there's such a difference in aesthetic with the kid versus the rest of the world.
That's true.
It's just a strange thing that like I've just accepted from before, but this is like the first time we had like a real like pulled in view of his face.
Yeah, what's weird about it is that it even looks like something about it has noticeably changed from even like last year's show, because like last year it was still kind of a weird sort of cell shaded look on his clothes and
like
stuff.
The kid is definitely different from last year,
but his face was glowing last year. I think it just seems to still have the cobwebs of just a game that literally has been in development hell for 10 years.
I mean, we could be seeing stuff that just needs to be cleaned up, polished up. It is an odd choice though, because neither of Team Eco's previous games had that theme of characters who stand out from the background. I mean,
I'm just so interested in this game because they were so close to shelving it, and they've admitted like freely that the only reason they didn't is because of like the fan reception and like the fans like want for this game.
Collector's edition. They announced those details right after the show. Get a Trico statue with the the package. I didn't see the price actually. It's not live yet. They just said what's in it.
$120 to $150 range.
I would think so. Yeah. Given what it comes with.
There's so many collector's editions this year.
It's bog standard, I know.
It's money. It's easy money.
Yeah.
It really is.
So, but yeah, October
25th
for that.
Yeah, it's time. It's kind of like Final Fantasy 15. Just give me the game.
Yep.
I'm done.
Right.
At this point. You don't need to show it anymore.
No more give it to me.
Yeah, you could do more harm than help at this point, showing me more of the game. We've seen gameplay last year. That was the big focus with that 15-minute demo, and this time it was.
Actually, with this, it still just hooked me. Like Final Fantasy 15 is a different example. It's like, give me the game.
I almost have more confidence in how The Last Guardian is going to feel and play than Final Fantasy at this point, which sucks, and I hate that I have to say that because of the development hell Last Guardian was in. But we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it.
That's going to be a fascinating bridge to cross.
Oh boy.
I'm kind of scared about Final Fantasy 15 to be honest.
I don't know what it even is.
I'm just like...
Last Guardian has a sweet simplicity to it, and then Final Fantasy 15
you can see a line
has a scary complexity to it.
Scary complexity, and they're banking so much on it being an international success, especially in the West, that you can definitely see that there's a little bit of culture clash.
It's like they're trying to make
there is a bit of a crisis, identity crisis.
It's like they're trying to make a game that will sell well to audiences instead of trying to make a game that they want to make.
They have to recognize that it's Final Fantasy. It's one of the biggest franchises in the world and has been for 20, 25, 26 years. It will sell. If the game is good, it's
even
got
if it's not, it's going to sell.
Yeah, it's got the cloud of the name.
It's
so
13
if it's,
showed.
Right. They'll make two.
They don't need to they don't need to conform to Western ideology or whatever way they want to do it. Like you literally, if the game is good, mixed with the cloud of the actual name of the title, the Final Fantasy name, it will sell incredibly well.
You look at Final Fantasy 7. There's some really weird elements and just weird sections of that with that game. So
Yeah,
really
the Don Corneo cross-dressing.
yeah,
That's on the first disc.
yeah.
When they first announced that remake, the first question that everybody asked
Sort of really
"Did you remove that
Japanese.
scene?"
If you remove it, we riot.
Yeah.
Well, I think the identity crisis, comes from the fact that like there are elements of the game that are just holdovers from Nomura's original vision, and now Hajime Tabata is the director, and they're going in a different direction. But it still feels like they're beholden to like the black leather emo chain like boy band main cast.
Yeah, I
like
still
that's
never liked that.
that is
beginning.
that like to me that's the
flying
most
car.
clashing element. But God, that demo did not play well.
No.
Microsoft's thing,
Right.
But either way,
Yeah, either way. There is a game that we did get to see more of that we wanted to see more of, and that was Horizon Zero Dawn.
look great.
It looked. Yeah, I
It's
was
a
like.
good time.
I mean,
I'm kind of sad that God of War was first because it kind of overshadowed the
a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
But it, I mean,
if you want to nitpick the little hooks when you like attach to the robots looked a little bit iffy, but beyond that, it was impeccable.
Did it when she fired the hooks? Did anybody else think about Uncharted and how Drake has to climb over the cables on the Jeep, but she just like ran through those cables? They were not solid. She just walked through them when she planted them, and I'm like, what are you doing?
well, it was interesting.
No, you don't.
Well,
He's eating your lunch.
talk about this in after, but so starting off, you got to see more of it as an RPG. First off,
for
like
sure.
at the beginning, where it's like
Absolutely,
you're in the village, you're talking to people. The guy's like, "Hey, don't go that way," but you're just like, turn the other way because of whatever. And she's like, no, I have to go this way. And he's like, oh, whatever. Best of luck. It's just,
You're crazy.
And then she went off. Yeah, then she went off across the bridges. Like there were signposts. There was like signs or drawings on the rock pointing to different directions on the bridges. So it's like they have a mapped out world. And it's not just like this really primitive, and part of it is like it's clearly not this really primitive place as it's portrayed as, because she understands the technology that she has that interacts with the creatures in the world, and like they have this level of intelligence that's really, really in depth. Like it's not just like primitive, like what's the world like? She's like, no, we understand everything that's around us. But I want to know where this stuff comes from. So that's her objective.
Yeah, totally. She knows where the power source weaknesses are.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and just going through, like, they clearly understand their entire community or what's around them. But one of the things that got answered for me was, like, I thought, are there any real animals in this? And we saw real animals running around.
Yeah.
Because I thought they would be totally replaced by the mechanical ones.
But what were the real animals?
There was a boar and there was a rabbit and some birds and stuff.
I remember the rabbit, when they set up a trap.
Yeah, there were a couple of boars that were
Man, if this is running on just general PS4 hardware and not Neo, like just the variety of colors and stuff, it is an incredible looking game.
It is a vibrant
Yeah,
game.
you look out on those environments, they're expansive and
Like even just the robots, just like the different strands, like which would be like kind of like blood vessels, like with the equivalent, just like different like shades and coloring and that, and so it's just like
when she hacked that stag to actually take over internet friendly, I'm like just watching the tendrils.
We have seen that she could ride those in previous footage, or that was released. But this is the first time we actually saw the taming process.
Yeah.
Like you actually had to hold them down, and then she used her staff. Like that was the first time we know it's like, okay, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Not just like some person like, I'm going to tame this random robot by breaking it, by riding it. It's like, no, there's actually a process that she understands how to control these things and make them do what she wants. And then being able to call it and just like so smoothly in like transition, get on it at full speed while attacking the corruptor or whatever the thing was that was ancient robot, she said.
And that was a long and engaged fight, and what really impressed me about it was a mini boss fight, I think you could describe it as, because it wasn't super epic like that Tyrannosaurus or whatever from last year's demo.
Yeah.
But like it was still like very, very engaged, and like there was a specific set of moves that demoist had to activate. Just like in order, it was a very purposeful strategy, and it was still like a solid 3-4 minutes before he ultimately brought him down, which made me think, this game is maybe harder than we think it is, At least I can't imagine myself so thoughtfully putting together a string of actions like that.
And there's different weaknesses in what type of weapons. Like fire was the weakness for that.
Yeah,
so she has like tons of different
fight.
arrow types and these. Yeah.
That gives me faith in the action RPG elements, because that's a term Guerrilla has been using from the outset. Is that this is it's an RPG at its soul and at its core. And I think I was skeptical of that in the initial demos, because you can call anything an RPG, but if it's just looting, it's literally, looting text from a box and crafting a menu. Like
And slight skill
an
trees,
RPG that does not make, but this did seem to have a real depth of tools and weapons that were contained within that wheel.
Sure.
But nothing overbearing. I think it was a nice balance.
Yeah, we would definitely.
I was really
hope so.
hoping that they were just going to tease us by like zooming out, like slowly starting to zoom out the map, but they didn't really change much.
Felt like that moment.
So we don't really have a grasp of what the scale of the game is yet, but it looks like it's promising to be pretty damn big.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
For sure.
Yeah,
It's a tough question, and we're only gonna have to deal with it this week when we decide about our rewards and stuff. Like this was
Yeah.
our most anticipated.
Well, you're gonna
last
go.
year.
You have an appointment to see it.
Yeah,
right?
I'll see some Horizon. We'll be able to talk about it and share it at length.
Do you know if it's hands on?
I'd have.
Because that would be amazing.
Would be,
It's
yeah.
just like
We can pray.
I hope so.
We can
This
hope and
is
pray.
Well, this-
the
yeah, this-
E3 before the game.
That's
this
true.
got
It
this
feels
got
like
a
time.
release, didn't it?
Yeah,
No,
it's
it got
February. Yeah.
February. This one, yeah, it got delayed for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we learned that a week or so
So
ago.
I mean, I wouldn't be totally surprised if you did get hands on.
Yeah, Ernest has a point. I mean, it could be
Yeah.
this would
I
be
would
its
hope so.
time.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it sucks because God of War was such an amazing outing, and Days Gone looked really nice. But this stands among those. It's just that we've already seen it. But this, if anything, just drives home the point that like Guerrilla does seem to know what it's doing. The dialogue quality, the story quality, that's the only remaining.
And you
question
get
for me.
you get the same like fleshed out conversation options you can have too, where you can get a little more extra info, like
very much a Mass
and
Effect
it's
wheel.
cool. Yeah, and just the conversation with the guy was like there's a demon, and she's like,
No,
it's
there
like,
isn't.
No, there's not a demon. But then you could also play along with it, or like be like surprised, like there's a demon, and I was like, no. So it's like I like that they have that diversity that they're putting into, but it doesn't look like it's really going to impact anything.
Yeah.
That they have their story that they're going to follow, and I'm excited to see where that goes.
Which is
And
fine.
you want that as well. I want that.
Yeah, I want more games that are going to go back to just like we have a story we want to tell.
Yeah, we mentioned that with like Watch Dogs 2. Like,
Yeah.
open world fatigue is a very real thing at the moment, and you
Yeah.
can give me the options. You can give me the variety in mission structure and how you go about missions, but give me a central narrative. Like, give me something to work towards, and keep me engaged with that.
Yeah. And the other thing too that I was excited about just in general is like especially from like God of War and then like I keep forgetting the name of the Ben's game.
Days Gone.
Days Gone. I
Not
keep
dead. Not dead. Don't.
I keep
Lie,
wanting to say
despite
like
all
End
the
Days.
rumors and
Yeah,
stuff about
Yeah.
that.
But that day, God of War, Days Gone, and then Horizon, they're all third-person action games. And I was like, I'm really excited
Yeah,
about
that's
that.
true.
This is like it's kind of a lot of the developers are going back to that type of thing.
Yeah.
And just like not like first person is kind of taking a back seat now. It's like we've had our ride with that. We're gonna go back to kind of more traditional.
Yeah, I was surprised Sony didn't
of
kind of come out with something a bit more kind of left of center, or something a little bit more wacky. You know, one of those kind of prototypical kind of party games, or just something indie orientated, or something smaller like it.
You know, the lack of indies was a notable thing for
Yeah,
me.
that's
the
true.
thing, the
There were no
structure was-
indies. Like,
yeah,
and
and
there's
that's
these
no
devolvers
indie sizzle
just
reel.
like right up there. They have like
Yeah.
Here's our 10 games that we're helping work
Gio
on.
Corsi walks out with his Vita to show like one title, and like those have become standard elements, and that's also a way for them to announce their cool partnerships. Like, you know, this is literally Sony coming back from the PS3 and its ill reputation and how developers weren't fond of it.
Yeah.
So now it's like, well, Tim Schafer's on stage with us showing Grim Fandango Remastered, and so-and-so's on stage, and we haven't worked with them in so long. Bungie. Maybe we're past that at this point. I mean, as we were going through the conference, and I'm like, it's not a victory lap in the same way that like Bethesda was celebrating its recent games, but this Sony show almost felt like an end cap to their success of the past few
it's
years.
Like, you
Like,
guys
it's-
know what we've done.
It's like you've
It's like,
you
We don't need to.
you've
Yeah,
earned
the
our
point.
goodwill.
Pretty
Like
much,
you've and clearly you have
yeah,
these
you
amazing
know what we've
partnerships.
done, and we know what you want. Here's what
Exactly.
you
Yeah,
want.
like
we
we're in the
just wanna
lead,
give
and
you
this is how you
good
keep
games.
Yeah.
It's amazing that they actually showed both Call of Duty Infinite Warfare and Modern Warfare Remastered without even a mention or a person on stage talking about like that prototypical PR spiel,
Yeah.
like our partners at Activision and day one DLC first. It was just, even for that game of all games, it was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
'Cause
footage,
last
and then they
year, I
moved
think,
on.
It was Destiny as well, but
Yeah.
this goes to quite a lot.
Yeah, it's so awesome that they're going that route. But next game was another hotly anticipated title, was Detroit
Yeah.
Become Human.
Detroit become
It's
human.
looking like it's Quantic Dream is going back to where they were shining the best or
With
best and
regard to
brightest
Heavy Rain,
Heavy
Heavy
Rain,
Rain.
yeah.
versus
They're basically
Beyond,
making
yeah.
a better Heavy Rain with cyborgs. It's kind of like
Yeah,
where
essentially.
I mean, the
or
potential
androids.
is there. It really
They're
is
androids.
there, but
So question:
No.
Where was Kara?
Yeah, that's right. I noticed that right away.
And all we're left with is
Oh, yeah.
speculation, right? I mean, we
I
don't
think
know.
she's the one that's kind of straddles that difference, that kind of the
Mm-hmm.
Blade Runner-esque question of like what
Am
is
I
human
right?
type thing.
Yeah.
She's
like
the one
ca-
who's more
Yeah, because the
human
character
and
we
exposes
saw
more
was
emotion.
very overtly a robot. Like the way, like every aspect of it, like was telling you, and he himself said it as well. So like they were really trying to like bring home that point. So I think that would be the.
I
area
was
of
getting Blade
contention.
Runner vibes from that encounter now that you mention it. And that would make sense. If they are going to go the multiple protagonist route, it would be cool if they had. It depends, because you could have 3 protagonists and then it gets a little muddled, although Heavy
I
Rain
really
did
don't
it
know
well.
if they are because of how they ended the trailer, where the guy said
With-
like, "This is," I can't remember his name.
This is our story, right?
Well, he's like, "This.
Is
My
it
name is what?
Connor?
This Connor. My name is Connor. This is our story."
So that is that. Just
Well,
so-
actually, it could be our as in like multiple people, actually
Like
in the
me
same
and
right.
Kara,
It could be a
it
different
could
way instead of our. It's like when they said our, I immediately assumed it was like him and the player,
I
but it
can't-
really could
yeah.
be just multiple.
I thought it was multiple.
It could be the androids. Yeah, it could just be this is androids, our story.
I can't imagine that. I'm not really worried about it because I can't imagine they would throw away all like the positive reception that Kara had, even going back to the tech demo from way before.
Yeah.
And just they've done all that animation and modeling for her from last year. I don't feel like they'd throw that away. So now it's just a
Yeah, it's
question
a
of
pretty famous
what role does
actual
she have?
model, like a real famous actress as well that is
Right.
it's modeled upon. So
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is
You're
just
not trying to-
I don't
surprising
think
that she didn't have
she's
any kind
out
of
the
hint.
game.
Do you
She's
guys-
still in there.
Do you guys think it strikes a beat almost a little too close to Heavy Rain? Is there going to be enough here to really differentiate it from that title?
I think it's
I think there is.
I think it's
I mean,
fun.
people
You've got-
want it. The,
Yeah.
the amount of like how fondly people look back on Heavy Rain. Like it didn't sell that well, but a lot of that was used.
Well, Heavy Rain sold pretty decent.
Well, it sold okay, but
Beyond
it was
didn't sell as nearly as well as
right. Well, I mean, Heavy
Strangely,
Rain
yeah.
sold okay for like high quality, like great reviewed games
Like the
standards, but a
blockbusters,
lot of
yeah.
that was because of used game sales.
Didn't it
really
end up with like
just
a
killed
90
it.
Metacritic or something really good?
Yeah,
It was
around
really
that.
high. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's people that have played that. Just like that was like one of the most memorable experiences that they've had on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
think,
it's like this is people are ready. I'm
Yeah.
ready for this.
I think this game, the setting is different. It's exploring these futuristic themes, and so that's enough for it to
Yeah, the
be
city
differentiated
skyline
from-
looked beautiful. Like when they zoomed out on that, it was like that's what I want to know is how much can you explore the city that you're going through it, and like is
That's
it
the
really
real question,
is it
yeah.
really just gonna be like Heavy Rain where it's like you have just like
Ultra-linear
you have like
segments,
a build like this like hallway in a building, or you have like the police station, or or can you just
The
like is it gonna
HoloLens.
be like a Deus Ex type of thing where you can just walk around in different areas and interact with people that are out there, and then you have conversations
Yeah.
going through that.
Yeah, and what impact would those conversations, if they exist,
Yeah.
have on the game at large? Do you think there's might be an element of perspective jumping or time travel or like rewind baked into the game itself? Because I know that the trailer was kind of tying in all those decisions to show like here's all the different ways it could go, but something about the way they visually presented that made it feel to me as if you may have the ability to like try something over or like experiment with other choices. even on
Yeah,
the
it's hard to
fly.
say for that.
I hope they don't do
Yeah, I mean, if
too
you wanna-
much time jumping.
If you want to keep it
or-
impactful, I guess you've got to limit that sort of thing.
You got to
Yeah.
restrict us to the
Yeah.
choices
Yeah.
we make initially.
I hope they don't do too much time jumping or kind of time
'cause
traveling
I'm
because
still,
I feel that makes the narrative a little bit disjointed.
Oh, certainly.
that was
It
a
did
tough-
with Beyond.
Right, exactly. I was going to bring up
They
that was a
literally
problem
repackaged it in chronological order
Yeah.
because of that complaint.
Exactly, and that was a big problem I had when I was playing through Beyond. Is just like
Just lose
the
track
story.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, the story just doesn't feel like it's clicking together very well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Next game, Resident
It's a big
Evil
one.
VR. Resident Evil 7 VR.
Yeah.
Did we all just like I looked at Adam? I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
looked at
I
Adam.
looked at Adam.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, we all predicted a reboot.
We did.
I don't know if we predicted to this extent.
We didn't
definitely
predict.
got the
We didn't
VR.
predict. Yeah, the VR we didn't predict.
Yeah,
Or
the
even
well, I mean,
game being able to be
we've-
played from start to finish with VR.
Yeah,
that's a surprise.
But it's also entirely in first person, which is totally
Yes.
Yeah.
even without
Yeah.
outside of VR. In VR, it's first person.
Like, I mean, we
horror, no matter
discussed kind of Capcom's the way they are at the moment, where they had to get like funding, like they were hesitant to do games like Street Fighter 5, which like Street Fighter is I wouldn't even say it's arguable. Like it's a bigger franchise than Resident Evil.
Yeah,
They were like weren't sure about funding like Street Fighter 5, and with this, like talking to the developer on hand with the VR hands-on demo, saying that like it was built for VR literally from 2014, just at the end of like Resident Evil 6, which I personally find a bit hard to believe because the demo itself and the reveal did seem so PT-like.
Also, even as a VR game, it was not visually impressive. Like, I've seen VR games that look a lot better than Resident Evil looks right now.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like, from watching the VR demo as well, it's, like, there is no kind of, jumpy points, and there's no thing that really would heighten the tension. Probably the music and stuff, of course, but...
So let me posit this to you as a series fan. We just talked about how God of War being a series successor.
Yeah.
We're praising the narrative focus, and we're praising the revamped gameplay. With the decline in Resident Evil coming down from 4 to like 5 and 6 just being very, very middling, as a series fan, are you okay with or even high on them revisiting gameplay and saying let's try it first person and let's go in a different direction?
I welcome the fact that it's a reboot and there's a definite change, but I'm really not sold on what it is now. It seems so far removed. Like it
looks like a lot of others.
I understand the
looks
VR
like a lost
aspect,
Resident
but
Evil
it doesn't even seem like Resident
thing.
Evil. I didn't see from, as we'll mention in the hands-on VR demos that we'll talk about at a later point. I didn't get to play it, but I watched the demo be played through about 3 or 4 times. I didn't even see a point where I was reminded of Resident Evil. Like, it did not seem like a Resident Evil game. There was not even a cue of anything that I would...
Yeah, were there zombies? I mean, there's
No,
certainly
there's
no
nothing.
umbrella corps.
There was
no,
a dude that walked through by the doorway.
Yeah.
and then was gone.
And the
So an
characters,
apparition.
the characters that you interact with in the demo, the other 2 characters, they are completely new as well. So the game is set after 6, and they were pretty closeted and saying that you'll meet series like favorites and stuff, but obviously you will. But I could tell nothing from that it's a Resident Evil game. So positive in the sense that it is a completely new experience, and at least they're not resting on their laurels and they're going full in with VR. But like it doesn't seem to be holding on to any part of its like identity. But I guess we do have the Resident Evil 2 remake, to kind of be that faithful representation of what we all know Resident Evil to be.
It is the year of Resident Evil after all.
Yeah.
So our friends at Capcom.
So we'll see, I guess, but I wasn't too impressed beyond actually playing it, which we haven't yet. And hopefully during the week we'll be able to. But
Yeah, hopefully.
yeah, happy that it was there, but still a lot of questions to be answered about it.
Yeah. I think it's just still too early to really make a solid verdict.
And the thing about it is, it's coming out, what was it, January?
Yeah, very soon.
And the
things
demo is
considered.
up on PS Store now, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that'll be the exact same demo as what was in VR, except not in VR. You know what I mean? Or if there'll be anything extra.
I think
tacked
that's
on
pretty
to
much
it.
what it's going to be. And it's interesting as well, talking to the developer, that the kitchen demo that was like a proof of concept for VR for Capcom is actually the end of the demo that they're showing now. Kitchen starts just from after that. And if you look at the kitchen logo as well, I think, what is it, the T? Is it the T? Is actually a 7. Like, there's been a Resident Evil 7 like nod in that logo the whole time. So the end of the demo, kitchen starts, and then the rest of the game is what it is. But yeah, I don't believe that it's been VR since 2014. Or
I
it's
can't
been
think so.
first person.
The technology wasn't there, for Capcom to really.
Yeah, it could have been
embrace
there,
that and
but like even
understand
just
it.
like after PT and stuff and seeing that reception, I can't imagine after like Resident Evil 6, you say let's go first person, let's go VR. I don't see it.
Well, immediately following the Resident Evil demo, we found out that PlayStation VR has an official release date now.
Yeah.
And official price. October 13th, priced at $399.
October's a pretty busy fucking month.
Yeah, it is.
No kidding.
Hey, VR, Last Guardian.
Yeah.
There's something else on October too. I know from the show that a release date.
But yeah, then they came out with a whole... So that was one of the only times that they broke from actual gameplay. Or like just trailers, and then they followed that up
Literally
immediately
an
with
image.
a
single slide on
and
the
then they followed
PowerPoint.
up with a ton of other stuff that was going after that.
The VR games, like the deluge of that, which we're about to dive into, was such a powerful moment, because I think I was getting a little bit of sentiment, even starting to feel it myself, that like these other VR experiences were really starting to step on Sony's toes a little bit. Like you've got there's like Fallout 4 coming to HTC Vive, and Fallout VR being on Xbox One with whatever partnership they're cooking up, and I'm like, thinking about going into Sony's show, I'm like, man, Sony's really gonna have to step up its game with some VR stuff to just keep ahead. Like people are leaping ahead with experiences like Fallout, but then to just the rapid succession of like fan favorite franchises and properties and complete surprises that we knew nothing about, just was awesome.
Yeah.
Sealed the deal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And first off, following that was Star Wars Battlefront VR.
Okay, the
Mission.
space
VR mission, yeah. That's what it was. So it was...
Pilot
my gosh.
X-Wing.
Yeah, so everybody was complaining about, why are there no space battles in Battlefront? It's like, here you go, and it's in VR. It's just like, all right,
This is
then.
as immersive as it can get. So.
Yeah, that was insane. So it's like, I would assume that you'd have to own Star Wars Battlefront to be able to access that.
Yeah, I mean,
I would think that there would be some caveat in there, but
it does seem like an EA thing to do that.
how they placed it was Star Wars Battlefront, and then it said VR mission at the bottom. So it's like they had a clear emphasis on Battlefront.
Yeah, publishers are always antsy about getting off content when there is a book to be made. So
Yeah. So but
and the Farpoint as well. There was I think that was the first game they debuted, right, on PSVR.
yeah, actually,
at the thing,
it was definitely in this.
Was it? I don't know. I'm just following the list that we got. But yeah, we can talk about Farpoint. We'll talk about.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later on
too.
too.
Delve into it a little bit.
Yeah,
I
we
guess,
all get to
before.
play that stuff. But yeah, that's the one that was like on Mars or whatever, and I don't know if it's actually Mars, but a red planet
Sure looks
somewhere.
like Mars,
Yeah.
It looks like Mars, like these
like
crab
this red
spider
faction,
things
like
that come
we did.
out.
Yeah.
I wish.
Alien sci-fi first-person shooter.
Yeah.
You know?
Which actually, it was really cool. But we'll talk about that a lot more in one of our trailers later on, or our videos later on. Amazing surprise, which I'm also going to talk about a lot later on, was Batman VR. Batman Arkham
Somebody's
VR,
so
made
long.
by Rocksteady. Made by Rocksteady.
Just as a property, I mean,
And they didn't tell us anything about it. It was just Mark Hamill's voice as the Joker talking to us about Batman and putting on the cowl, and I was like,
I mean, it's
my
always
body
been
is
that.
ready for
Like
this.
he's the superhero that doesn't have the superpowers, and even going back to the late '90s when you had that like American football Snickers commercial. I don't know if you had it over here, where there's like an American football player who gets like a really bad hit, and he's put to the bench, and then it's like, "Are you okay?" Whatever else. What's your name and stuff? And he's like, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm Batman." It's like, right, you're not getting back on.
Yeah, but I mean that's the beauty of this. I mean, we'll talk about that later, but it's you put on the cowl, you are Batman in this experience, and that's what you can't do that really. You couldn't do that as convincingly with any other hero.
Yeah.
Because he, like you said, he
By the very
doesn't
nature
he
of
doesn't
the
have the
cowl.
powers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's you just get placed in that position. But yeah,
Literally
I'm going to
putting
talk
us-
about that a lot later on in one of our other videos. So I don't want to talk much about it because they didn't really tell us much.
At the very least, just the appearance of that property did fit into that stream of just like, holy crap, they have Star Wars Battlefront in VR. Oh my god, they have Batman in VR. And both of these, to our knowledge at this point, are PlayStation 1 exclusive.
Yeah.
PlayStation 1 exclusives. PlayStation VR exclusive, which is a major feather.
And the fact
in
that
Sony's
Band
cap.
were right there as well. Well, bar Battlefront, but like having Arkham there and having Resident Evil and stuff playable, like it did send out a statement.
Running on an actual PlayStation 4 console.
And one of the
Well, some of them
I
we don't
see it.
know.
I
We
don't,
I know.
want to. I don't want to.
Well, one of the things that we were joking about a lot prior to the conference, I don't even know if we talked about it in the predictions at all. And I know we talked about it before with Sean Layden last year wearing it. Or no, it was PSX wearing the
Yeah.
Crash Bandicoot t-shirt.
Yes.
Crash Bandicoot made an appearance. We'll talk about the positive appearance first.
Yes, please. Let's do that. Let's
That's
do
what's
that
so-
first.
first.
Well, first it was like we were just talking, and I was like, the thing came up, and I was like, oh, ukulele, and then I was like, oh, maybe it's Crash, and then also the music came, and I was like, holy crap, it's
Yeah.
Crash. And then he came out and joked about it, and then announced that Crash 1, 2, and 3 are going to be remastered from the ground up for PlayStation 4.
It was so interesting that he didn't even like go on about the point. Literally, the cheering hadn't stopped, and he had already said,
And there
1, 2,
are-
and 3 are remastered. We didn't even hear it properly. We
No,
had
it
just
was tough.
asked him, is it the first 3? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3?
Yeah,
all I
I
heard,
missed some of
all
those
I heard was
words.
literally warped, remastered, because the cherry like that's how that's how quick.
Wouldn't it be awful if
the
they, I mean,
actual-
Warp is amazing, but it would just suck if
That's
they
how
just
quick
picked
the
that game
announcement
to-
was.
Yeah.
It was rushed a little bit, which sucks
It's because he wanted to get to the big announcement, which is that Crash is in Skylanders.
Which
And
I leaked
Crash
before.
my
Edition.
God.
He looks absolutely atrocious.
Somehow I'm just like, as the
Kids
moment,
like atrocious things.
as the moment was coming up, I had faith too. I was like, come on, Activision, like
You saw
give
what they did
me
with Spyro, for God's sake.
give me a
Well,
Crash that I
Spyro
can
at
be
least
proud
had,
of.
like, he didn't look...
There is no
He looked-
redeeming. He didn't look like Spyro.
No, yeah, he didn't look like Spyro, but he didn't look bad
Purple
as
Snout
as a
Monster.
dragon in like.
Do
the
you
game.
remember the original art that came out of that game? My God.
Well, I mean, that when he was actually in the game, he was like, okay, it's a different take on Spyro. It doesn't look like Spyro, so that's
I don't know why
don't
they
like
did that because
but-
like you have the brand, you have the recognition of the character. Why
yeah, they own it.
You have to
or like for
shift it
Crash, they
that
own the like. Why do you have
drastically?
to
It doesn't
change?
make sense.
And especially with the timing of the remaster coming out, I mean, it's just incongruous to have what's going to be, the PS1 Crash up-resed and retextured against the atrocity that's in Skylanders Imaginators, right?
It'll probably be the same Crash.
I
They
am-
take that model, put it in the.
I am. Oh, Jesus! No,
yeah.
no.
It's in
I am
partnership
so-
as well. It
This
is
is
actually
your
done-
new
Yeah.
Crash.
That's
Get
right.
get out
Yeah,
if
because
that's the
Activision,
case.
yeah,
No.
that's true.
It's a partnership.
Activision
It's
is
not just
partnered
Sony
with
doing it, so.
yeah, Activision's in
You know?
prime
Okay.
position behind it.
I can't. Here's my thought about Sony. Right. I think in the relationship of the way this property works, that Sony still owns 1, 2, 3 and Crash Team Racing because they can sell those on PlayStation Store
Yeah, they still
without
have those.
permissions, which says to me like they have the choice whether or not to approve or disapprove the remaster. Even though they're using the
Well,
character
they own the
again.
original games. I don't think they can't create any new Crash titles.
But
so
they
if they're
can't.
remastering it. I think that comes into some shady territory.
It's weird because they can't. Yeah, I
It's
mean
a gray area.
they
It's
can't
kind of,
remake assets.
I think it's kind of a question if we look back on other remasters, like say Final Fantasy 12 or 10.
Right.
Those are only on PlayStation platforms, and those.
But they did multi. Yeah.
But yeah, those.
They put them on
those
all
are
the
only
consoles.
on PS2, and they only ever put them on PlayStation consoles aside from PC.
It
Yeah.
depends
So
on.
I don't know if there's
It's
kind of
weird.
legacy type of agreements.
probably why it took so long.
Well, it's
to
about the
get things
gnome.
working because
Which I think is surprising. Like, a lot of publishers have a habit of just like sitting on IPs for literally no reason, and it was nice to see even like before Square Enix with the likes of Fear Effect, where like they say, if you have ideas for our like old IPs, go ahead. We'll take 30%, whatever, but like make them. Why not?
Yeah.
But
With Final Fantasy X, because they first remastered it on PlayStation 3,
Yeah.
why wouldn't they also put that on Xbox 360, given 360's huge fan, install base? So,
What's different here is that I think if we look at it as a remaster and not a remake, although someone on Twitter made a good point that it's like at this point these games look so old that it's like you need to do some serious,
Yeah,
not
they're
just
remaking
up-resing.
it.
Like there's going to be repainting of textures, maybe some filling with mechanics, but
yeah, new models.
there's still, maybe it comes down to like
they're so linear as well, though. I think, contender for like a remaster, it's not too bad.
No.
if they use more than 50% of the assets of the original games in the construction of this game, even if they take an asset and then like repaint it or something, knowing nothing about the legality of this and how the laws and the ownership actually works, but I feel like if they're using the majority of assets from the original games, then Sony gets to say yes or no about doing a remaster. And if that's the case, I trust that it's going to be good Crash, because I refuse to believe that Sony would give a thumbs up to that Crash being in their Crash Bandicoot remaster, because that just hurts you more
But
than
I mean,
it helps
it's
you.
tough to say because I think maybe all Sony has been hearing is we want Crash, we want Crash, we want Crash. They probably haven't thought about
yeah, and Activision just
how
kept saying
outrageous the
it's
model
ours,
of
it's
it could
ours,
be.
it's ours.
I still think it's like
this is what
the
we
first
want
3
Crash
as
to
well.
look
Like that's
like
that's.
Yeah.
I will be broken if Skylanders Crash is the new model.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that they want to push
Everyone
forward.
would-
No,
Gamers would
no,
revolt.
I'm not saying I wouldn't be surprised. I don't
Yeah.
want it to be.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Yeah.
like if you're gonna push through a character and you have a flagship game like Skylanders, why wouldn't you have kind of brand parity and like have the same model? I don't want it to be that way.
Yeah, I know that. I just don't understand how they could even approve that to begin with. Who at Activision was like, "That's
They
good."
approved the Spyro. Okay, anything can happen.
Right,
I'll
but I
never
mean,
forget
it
that.
wasn't like the Spyro was a different model, but it still looked like it was an okay design as a creature. This is just just
I'll contend
completely
that point
ugly,
later
and it looks like a clay sculpture made by a 5-year-old.
Yeah, it's like I would
not-
even take the tattooed Crash from like Crash of the Titans over this cotton
Yeah.
candy looking freak. It's just a fluffy
It's
ball of,
just so
of
weird.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
He looks plastic in the game, like that. Why would
Sell
you-
I
toys.
just want to stress quickly as well. It's 3 games as well. Like I remember how many hours I sunk into that trilogy. Like hundreds of hours
Oh, yeah.
somehow. That's a lot of game.
And trophies. for the first time.
Yeah, it's a
Something
lot
to
of
log
game.
your progress. Yeah,
Next VR teaser that we got. Well, Crash wasn't VR teaser, I don't think.
Right.
I would
Oh,
be
God.
surprised.
Getting that
But
boulder chasing.
Final Fantasy 15 made an appearance at the show, but in VR form.
yeah.
Mission.
Now this surprised me because it's like, well, we saw a little bit of footage from the game itself. Even at Sony's show, we saw a bit more of it. But then this came out, and I'm like, is this really where we need to be spending our resources on the game that could make or break the franchise?
Yeah, because the first thing
like,
that-
why are we building a
Yeah.
VR experience
The
this
first thing
close
that
to
Ernest
launch?
and I said was the game, judging by the Platinum demo, didn't run at all well. So you're going to go into the VR stakes now and try and get that to run.
And make something
Yeah.
that's really just gimmicky and not
It
that
seemed incredible. I know you, well,
Yeah,
when
a
you
couple.
played it,
Yeah,
yeah.
both
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
get to play it, but and you'll talk about it more later on. But it was
It
it's
seemed incredibly
just from
gimmicky.
what you saw. It's just like there's no you can't move.
And it's
Apart
not
from teleporting,
right.
you just can like shoot your gun, and that's all you can do. Just positioning yourself and shooting, which is like very arcadey, very simple.
And it's
in terms
even
of idea.
and even as a thing of marketing, it's odd because this game, even at the earliest, would be coming out like a month after the true game's release. You know what I mean? And at
Yeah.
that point, we know like how fast people burn through brand new games today. Like the hardcore Final Fantasy fans will more or less be over FF15. It will have had its moment in the spotlight. So then, what value does a VR experience even serve? You
And
know
how
what I mean?
deep of an experience is it? Is it just that
Doesn't-
single
yeah,
thing?
Doesn't look like it's
Like, is it-
I have to imagine there are other scenarios, but even still,
Yeah.
the only assumption we can operate on is that you're playing as Prompto all the time,
Right.
and Prompto's
Yeah.
whole shtick is the guns, which bleeds well into like warping at a fixed
Yeah.
point.
I mean, this is just, I think, indicative of a trend that we're going to start seeing is that games that are primarily just a non-VR experience tack on.
Get a thing like this.
I think this
Tack
seems like
on
the
a VR
definition of
experience.
tack, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got this. The upcoming Hatsune Miku rhythm game has just a VR like concert viewer mode. I think this is just going to be a trend now to be like, hey,
Yeah.
we have
Something to
we
use
have
your
VR
headset on,
software and content, but
It's the Killzone move mode. Great.
Yeah.
just right. It's like how much of that content is actually like lengthy and quality
Yeah.
and stuff.
The best part about that though was just the trailer where he turns around and he's got the VR headset on.
Yes.
Like that was just hilarious and that was
yeah,
just so
it was
funny.
bad, yeah. It's like, it was.
And then there was a
great
slightly
show.
uncomfortable moments where
An
Prompto's-
examination of Cindy that we really
yeah,
didn't,
sitting in the car,
that we
just
really didn't.
checking her out.
Random date driving.
I
yeah.
felt
some audible sighs around the car.
I felt kind of creepy in the demo doing that myself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So it's an odd thing.
Big announcement, which we already touched on already, was that Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Was it VR?
No,
Remember that? It was just that, yeah.
it just fell in a weird
It fell
place
in the,
where
it fell within
seemed
that
like
kind
a-
of like random
Yeah.
stick.
It was
with
just
that,
this a lot of spaceship.
but I was actually surprised how good that looks.
It looked better than I thought it would.
Like
It looked to me like a serious gameplay evolution, just in
Yeah,
terms of
it-
like the grappling. I'm like, this is going to be the first Call of Duty I've played in years that
Yeah.
feels notably different. From
and
the
I
other
actually
ones.
I wanted to play it after seeing that. Like it
For
looks
sure.
like it's got that like every time Call of Duty's come out or when they get advertised, people are like, "Oh, another Call of Duty," but it's like
I didn't
those
get that
games
vibes
are
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
not at all for this. It's like Call of Duty really showcased itself as being the flagship shooter. Like it really showed it as being like this looks like it plays amazingly, and it's been worked on like for years and years to make it polished as best they can make it.
The timing of the thing was funny too, because I know, like when we went to see EA stuff earlier in the day, we were talking about Battlefield 1 and just how unique it feels, how unique it looks, returning to a setting that's familiar still, but it's still very different from the modern shooter thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, maybe not in sales because Call of Duty is a juggernaut, but at least in critical reception, I felt like Battlefield 1 might eat Call of Duty's lunch because it just looks so cool and
I
different.
I thought that it's for sure.
But then going into this, I see Infinite Warfare, and I'm like, there's a lot to see here and really
Yeah.
a lot to appreciate about what
Yeah,
they've changed
actually,
in
like
the game.
after playing Battlefield 1 earlier today too, it was just like I wasn't totally sold on how it felt playing it, and I just like it. I respect what they're trying to do, and I'm actually happy to see a game go to World War One. And I was not interested at all about this being Infinite Warfare, even more in the future. But now it's like that's the shooter I want to play if I want to play a shooter.
Right.
Like I just want to play that game, and how the interaction with the gravity and the space and all the stuff, and this hook to zip line or like to zip through and connect yourself to it, and shooting people in the air, and Just the dynamics.
Space is a weird place for video game violence too, because they busted out the window in that breach and clear, and they sucked all the people out into space. And I'm just like, and the thought crossed my mind, they're just gonna be floating in the abyss forever. Like it's just like we haven't dealt with that in games.
They had the
before.
different melee animations, or you'd pull them closer, and the one he just rips the mask off the one guy, the other one he gets the grenade set off. Third one, he knees him in the face, and this goes on.
When there's the enemy threatens our freedom, leave no stone unturned.
Yeah, but it's just really. It seems like it's really going to be a dynamic game, much more so than I thought it would be. I thought it felt really gimmicky and just like, yeah, let's go into the future even more. And this is like, no, we actually know we have a vision of what we want it to be.
For sure.
So
for sure.
I'm excited for that for sure.
But we did a Modern Warfare remaster too. We did find out that that's coming early to PlayStation, and that's significant. PlayStation people are going to be playing that a month before anybody else.
When you get that story done in 4 hours, so.
That's fair. They don't need a month to play it. But was it just the campaign coming early? Or
I think the campaign.
Yeah, okay. So not the multiplayer maps.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that game has been so wanted and it's so iconic, really.
I mean, it's going to be a trip.
First-person shooters,
easily. The sniper mission.
Yeah,
I think
the nuclear moment.
Being concise and having no like unnecessary fluff and no unnecessary moments is really what makes the game special to me. Like damn near every mission is memorable and has a purpose. And I think when that game comes out, people are going to replay it and realize just how back to basics can be a good thing. And it's like the story is trim and lean and does exactly what you need it to do without overcomplicating things or bringing in Kit Harington as the villain. That's why it's at least 20% of the reason. I was actually hoping he would poke his head in with the rumors and stuff that have been circulating about that, but no Jon Snow.
All right. Next announcement was The Force Awakens Lego game,
which I think came across as a little bit.
Nobody was excited in that.
I mean, it's
theater.
coming out.
Nobody cared.
It's coming out in 2 weeks. So
but as soon as it just came on, there was just like nobody was like there was no
and like demos available right now. Like it's been known that the demo's been available for the past couple of days. So
it was just like
it just seemed pretty muted.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure a lot of people love
Lego
it.
Games are solid and they sell them. They're great.
It just seemed like
with your family.
It just seemed like they had an obligatory showcase of it.
It was like a breather moment, right?
It was just kind of like we have to show this because we want you to be excited.
It was the only bit of fat in the whole thing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
not much more to say about that. Yeah.
Now we're on the most. I don't even know what to say about this thing.
I thought it was.
So
awesome.
this was when
true to form.
This is when the curtains parted and then the beam of light led us to the return of Hideo Kojima.
I'm sorry, but come on.
And then the one random guy behind us that shouted Kojima-san.
I think we can take a moment just to realize that video games are bloody ridiculous. Like just the whole kind of chaos around them. Like it's just so ridiculous.
So Death Stranding was the official name of this. Yeah, I'm not sold on that either.
It just it seems like just
Kojima's
translation
quote unquote game because we have no idea what the hell it is yet. But Norman Reedus looks like ridiculously real in this and looks really well done.
Godspeed to Norman Reedus for sticking it out despite all the shit that went down with PT. Because like he and Guillermo were just like swearing off video games, like, oh, is this the industry? This sucks. But then he's just like, let's give this one more shot. I'll come back for whatever you're making.
And I was on Instagram,
and I'll come back naked in the premiere trailer.
I'll show them.
Naked, holding a baby with dead whales on the beaches, and then 5 random people floating.
Like how Kojima can you get?
Like, yep, he truly is back. He truly is back.
No, but like the artistry of this trailer was phenomenal. Like it really was impactful and powerful, but I have no idea what I watched. That's kind of what it was.
Which is okay in a way.
But the quote that they had at the beginning, and then you read the expanded version of that when you looked it up later, and the whole trailer expanded or like matched the continuation of that.
Exactly.
Quote.
Yeah.
Without the rest of that poem.
Without knowing exactly how the rest of the poem goes, this was quickly found out on Twitter after the conference. But essentially, everything from Norman being stripped naked to having a piece of him, in this case the baby, separated, kind of separate from him.
The marking,
being away from, as the poem goes, it's like separate from the five, which path will you walk? And we see these five figures out in the sky. That shot of him on the beach, and then that long extended range of these guys floating in the air. One was maybe the most was the most Metal Gear thing I've seen since Metal Gear, and two was incredibly haunting to me. There was something about just the scale of the fact that they're in plain sight, and I think that was probably it. The contrast of these five figures being in perfectly plain sight, and yet you know literally nothing about them. You can't see their faces, you can't tell what they are, who they are, and it's just and yet they're teasing you, they're staring you right in the face with their haunting figures.
And the one thing that I did notice after we watched it again, because it was hard to see on the thing, but the baby that was there, we have no idea if it actually was there or not or whatever, but there was an umbilical cord leading to Norman Reedus' character, and then it was gone, and then all of the whales and stuff on the beach had umbilical cords leading into the ocean. And that was
Oh, I didn't see
and that's that matches the same theme of all the letters. I thought it was like roots or blood or something that was dripping from them, but that matches the same curvature and how they had it of the umbilical cord. So that's the stranding or the connectednectedness of it,
the matrix, the threads of connection, the threads of fate, or something.
Yeah, so it's like a literal interpretation of being connected with whatever your part of the world.
This could be the most like flat on its face embarrassment of a game, or it could be the most ambitious storytelling thing ever conceived.
Yeah. It's like you'd never know.
You really don't, but
like we don't even know what we have no inkling of
it
what
could be a
type
40-hour
of theme
allegory
of a game it is, or is this going to be like a thriller horror type of thing like this?
I think he has called it an action game, which
he did call it
a.
Yeah, he mentioned he mentioned the
he said
Division
people.
and stuff.
He said that's right. He said people who are fans of Metal Gear will like this game.
Clearly from the
Division
series
as well.
trailer.
I think he actually used the Division as an example as well,
which is like
really
which is bizarre.
Which is like, how do you match that with naked Norman Reedus on a beach?
I'm more confused. I'm more confused than I was 10 minutes ago.
And that is Kojima's great skill. It's making people confused and just.
I'm telling you, he just needs to get
love
a better
how bizarre
translator. He's never
it looks.
correctly translated.
It's bizarre. It's got just a really unsettling.
It's like an English major with a thesaurus, pretty much. Like that's what it comes out like all the time, and it's just like, come on.
Were you guys surprised at all, though, that we did end up seeing this thing? I mean, I know I predicted that, but it was my out there prediction.
There. Like that
I wasn't surprised.
There,
I think,
and I was surprised how weird that trailer was.
I actually just totally forgot all about his like ongoings and
everything.
I mean, his travels of the world.
He is the biggest figure in the industry, pretty much from a developmental side. So you've got that ace in the pack that Sony do have. You've got to show it, regardless of the fact that he's shipping for an actual engine for his game, like 2 or 3 months prior to this. The game is presumably coming out in late 2018, early 2019, or Kojima maybe 2022.
I'm guessing 2018 at the earliest.
But if you've got that in your armory, you got to show it.
It's such a Kojima thing too to have that trailer be like, and this is even including like God of War and Days Gone and all these debut things. I have not seen a trailer at this show or even like the last couple years that felt more purposeful and perfectly constructed as that one, like just so tightly polished to be exactly what he wanted. And that's such a Kojima thing to even be like 3, maybe even 4 years out from the game coming out, and yet the earliest possible theoretical footage of it is like this ultimate story package that will mean something later.
I mean, that's
and will
what
feed into
sets
something.
Kojima apart from other game developers is that he really likes to be hands-on with the marketing, and he really likes to be the one who edits the trailers. And we saw that with,
that's fair,
with Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain.
That's what
I think there
there
was 1 or 2 trailers that clearly weren't directed by him, that were very standard fare. And
just standard action stuff. Well, I mean, that's a perfect example. Phantom Pain's earliest trailer, going back to the Moby Dick days, still featured, burning, spoilers to Phantom Pain, pause it, walk away if you need to, burning Colonel Volgin in the hospital, and like all these trademark moments that were literally reproduced beat for beat in the actual game. And this is like 2011, 2012, and the game came out 3 or 4 years later. I
Yeah.
mean, so this is a perfect example of that, just how intentional everything is.
Oh
with it.
yeah.
Yeah, Moby Dick Wales. There you go.
He plans it out and he sets
Yeah.
it, and you can see that in all his games.
And one secret that was planned for a long time, apparently, and it's just like, I can't believe that this is actually going to be here, was, new Spider-Man game by Insomniac.
By Insomniac. So
Yeah.
Sucker Punch was a red herring all along,
Yeah.
right? You have to imagine that was actually maybe threaded or planted out there in some fashion.
Somebody, yeah.
I mean, right? It has,
I mean, they're pretty interchangeable. I think if you were going to pick any two studios that would work closely with Sony, like, they are the closest together.
Well, nobody knew that. I assumed that Insomniac was just kind of headed to Microsoft.
Yeah,
was going to
yeah,
make their bet
Overdrive.
over there. Yeah, but that didn't get received all that well. But I mean,
what's weird is that they're apparently working on like 4 games right now. There's Edge of Nowhere, the VR experience. There's like Song of the Deep or something like that.
GameStop published game, yeah.
The GameStop published game. They literally just wrapped Ratchet and Clank, and they had like most of the team working on that.
yeah.
And now this apparently is pretty far along. I mean, you can tell just by the
Yeah,
polish.
I
of
That's
it,
mean,
gameplay
the animation.
happening there,
which is almost
It
like
was
the thing.
ridiculous.
The development of this had to have started near the tail end of Sunset Overdrive's development.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to have been that early to look this polished and look this far along.
Yeah.
I mean, god damn.
And you were saying as
trailer
well,
is
I just wanted that
independent
game
of the
so
movie
bad.
universe.
Yes, it is. So that's an important point, and I heard it from the devs after the conference. It is its own video game universe, independent of the films.
So good.
And
it's a mature
Insomniac's
Spider-Man.
and that's huge too. Yeah, we're dropped right into the middle or whatever the mature end of Spider-Man's career, where he is already powerful and experienced, and people know who he is and already depend on him. So which is cool, because it almost feels like an Arkham moment to me, where the villains and the cast are already well established, and we step into Spider-Man's world without having to deal with the origin crap. He's already had run-ins with
Yeah.
Vulture. He's
Yeah.
already had run-ins.
We're not
with
gonna
Green
have
That
Goblin.
stuff
Another-
is boring,
another
and we
game.
already have explored that in
Yeah, and
other
multiple
Although this
games,
could have been a chance to have an
multiple
even
movies.
younger Aunt May. This could be just like
I'm
Aunt
pretty
May's like
happy with
31.
Marissa
She's
Tomei,
like
to
his
be honest.
older cousin,
Yeah.
cousin May. Yeah, but I mean, my goodness, the animations and everything
The
feeds
movement,
into
the
each other.
parkour.
Yeah, the movements, just how he.
Yeah.
There's that scene where he's going through that office, and the way he just
yeah.
so
Oh,
sleekly
table,
moves.
pillar, window.
Crashes the
And it's got
lands
the
in there.
best elements of the Andrew Garfield films, which, far from perfect as they were, I think they really captured the power contained within Spidey's speed, like just
Yeah.
the launching
Yeah.
and lurching through windows and through gaps, and twisting in ways that a human body can't. Like that seems to be very much on display in the game, and something that will differentiate it from
just
other
a lot of
Spider-Man
the flourishes
games.
that games have experimented with, but they just didn't have the ability to do properly then. But like even towards the end, the one thing that just got me really was like, I think they were on the top of a train and the building was coming, and there was just a really fast animation where he dodged it, but he also did like this kind of like quick flip momentum kind of roll and then kick off.
Yeah,
And
off
it's
the
like
top,
kicked the guy like right
And that's
off there,
so-
and then dodged, hitting the enemy and dodging out of the way at the same time, which is like that's Spider-Man like in a nutshell. It's
Yeah,
just like
that is
that-
the intensity of his motion.
yeah, just like that intention and the awareness and just like impact of everything rolled into one.
I
Just,
mean, like I've said it before that like I'm not a massive like superhero fan. Like we talked about Injustice and stuff, but like this speaks to me. I mean, I was a big fan of the originals on PS1 and stuff. So like,
Same.
and the fact that I just think Spider-Man's like general mechanics just lend themselves so well to a video game, and like just
Yeah,
like,
and
a
that
lot
power
more
fantasy.
dynamic and fun and stuff. So like
Absolutely.
I'm definitely I'm like
There's a few things
Just
that I
for Sony.
need for this to be the Spider-Man, the true Spider-Man experience that I really want. It needs to have refined, polished swinging. And I think Insomniac's going to place that at the forefront because of all the things that people have said they love about like Spider-Man 2 from back in the day. It was the kind of innovative swinging at the time where all his web lines had fixed points, and but you still maintain speed as you move through the city.
See, I have faith that they will nail that movement and do it really well, because I played Sunset Overdrive.
if you
and I really like
There
the
you go.
movement.
Well,
I
I was-
That's
really
almost
like
an
the
open
movement.
world
Well,
like
I was-
training for
Right,
gonna
it's an
say,
open
right?
world
Think
game.
about it.
I thought it was done pretty well, and the movement in that felt really smooth and sleek. It almost reminded me of a smoother jet grind radio, and there's a lot of just like bouncing and verticality
Right.
and how those characters
But
move.
you
in that
think about Insomniac, Ratchet and Clank, the swing shot.
Yeah, I mean, there's
like they nail that with the swing shot. There's like a basic kind of swinging, moving around, getting it. All they have to do is amp that up with the speed and just the extension of how far they can reach and just make basically virtually every point a connection point.
Yeah,
for the webs.
It just amplifies speed. I mean, I hope for things like power ups, just deepen the experience that is Spider-Man. You gotta have some unlockables and some things to go with there.
I want to see some really cool fight combos for when you're fighting multiple enemies.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Take that Arkham thing and just run with it.
Exactly.
Right? Something really polished like that. The being in a separate universe is great. I want this to be good. I want this to be good so bad.
I have every faith that it's going to be.
Yeah.
Like they're just not going to screw it up. That's my call on this. It's like
my call is not going to hit the massive incredible tier, but it'll be really good. Like
it'll get 9s. I think it'll get 9s for sure.
I think it's the potential to get 9s.
It's easily going to get 9s from at least a few outlets.
This could be Marvel's Arkham.
So the Marvel Connect for sure. Oh god, that's such an exciting thought to even think about with all the ways that Arkham surprised us.
You can contact us.
I don't know how I would feel then if Insomniac just became the Spider-Man developer.
If the game is good and if the game is expansive and if it covers all the story beats and gameplay beats that fans want, you could really take time off. If that game is a total complete package, you could have said the same thing with Arkham Asylum. Arkham Asylum, despite it having somewhat of a cliffhanger ending, if I remember right,
and a bad ending.
That was such a
such a bad ending.
Yeah, it was such a great Batman game though that if they had never done Arkham City or Arkham Knight, and Arkham Asylum was just this thing from 2009 or whatever that was amazing, I would have been okay with that as its legacy.
You'd want another one to come up eventually, but you would be happy with where it was.
Yeah, definitely happy with how they got it. It does beg a question to me, is Marvel going to extend this to other properties where they seek out talented developers to entrust their games to, then they don't have to worry about it, they can just vouch for
and how much
the
influence does Marvel have on the developers making these
for sure.
games with these properties?
I know the movie universe is obviously different. So Sony, did they forfeit the rights?
No, Sony still holds
for
the rights.
Homecoming, isn't it? When is
that releasing? So Sony still owns the movie rights.
Yes.
But they have come with some sort of deal in partnership with Marvel to co-produce future films. But Marvel has a lot of their hand in the creative process for it.
Okay.
And so I think they're the ones who get the final approval.
And do we know when Homecoming is coming out?
It's next year.
I want to say next fall, late next year.
Okay.
So probably pretty well timed with the release of this game. But it's kind of refreshing to me to know that we're going to have two different Spider-Man experiences. Although there is inspiration in his suit in terms of the way, speaking to Civil War, the way his eyes move and expand or narrow and stuff.
Eyes.
Yeah, that match, his eyes and his expressions.
But really glad that it's not a movie license game, so it's not tied down.
They have total creative freedom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. And with a studio like Insomniac, what could be better than total creative freedom?
I'm looking forward to the humor. They're gonna have the perfect balance of humor in that. So that's Spider-Man.
His voice. His voice sounded good.
Yeah, the voice was really good.
Is that Ratchet's voice? Is the real question.
No, that wasn't James Arnold.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
I don't know.
It sounded, when I first heard it, I actually thought, "Is this a Ratchet game?" When I heard the voice, because I was like, "This is a city." This is a city. I was like, "This isn't a city." I was like, "Wait, what the heck?" Because then it said Insomniac. I was like, "What's going on here?"
I swear to you, because it felt like New York City to me. I'm like, "Is this Resistance?" I thought for just a fleeting second, it was a Resistance prequel. The invasion hadn't happened yet, because it had an orange sort of tint over everything because of the setting sun, and we saw the cars and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll return to Resistance in the off years between Spider-Man games.
I don't think they should. I love Resistance, but I don't like how the third one was handled at all.
Really? God, I love the third. I think it was the best one. Anyway, we'll continue.
Yeah, we won't open that can of worms.
Spider-Man came late in the conference, and I know we definitely had the Days Gone gameplay after that, and that was how they closed the show.
I don't think
slightly flat. I
think.
think.
I don't. That was good. Yeah, I was waiting for something. That was
waiting for that one more.
Yeah,
thing.
that was the thing. It was the biggest omissions
7,
for the conference for me were first was what is Sucker Punch doing? I was waiting. That's what I thought that it was going to end on the trailer.
There's all that mystery,
I thought that was going to the sizzle reel at the end, and then all of a sudden it was kind of dark for a second, and then also like this thing comes up.
Yeah.
Like, what is
Because I'm
this? And then
surprised, like,
it's
if you're
a
going to
sucker
show Days Gone twice, and one of which is a live gameplay demo, you expect that you're going to get a release date as well. Like, why else would you show gameplay? There's no point in
And that was weird to me. Why announce the game and not like that would have been the perfect time to show some gameplay, right? And it could have been a long demo. It could have been a 20-minute thing where we got, or 10, 15 minutes where we got the story trailer and gameplay smushed together, which they do with so many things. It was deflating not only because we have our reservations about the game and the way it looked in action, but also because like, we're going back to that. Okay, like that was a little bit of a flat way to end the conference. I agree. Not an inkling of Vita anywhere in the show.
Yeah, there was not even on like the ends of trailers or anything. Yeah,
as much as I like it, but
I was expecting at least like a sizzle reel of like indie titles, like here's what Devolver's working on, like, and also coming to Vita and stuff, but not even that.
Yeah. Then I guess the next biggest omission for me was there was nothing on Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah,
we don't.
I can't say
about that.
Like, obviously there's like 3 developmental teams working on it, and like it was not beyond the realm of possibility that we'd see maybe a release date for the first episode. But when you think of it objectively, you can't expect it. I
expected a look at the battle system.
To be fair, I did not expect to see any snippets of gameplay when PSX came around.
It's tough here too because it could show up in anybody's show. I mean, it is Square leading the charge there, and it's multi-platform. So
TGS,
right?
Like, there it is,
shows just a couple months
right,
away.
but I mean, you'd expect it to have some sort of presence at E3.
Well, we thought so with like 15 being on the Xbox stage, but
I wonder if they just want to have their focus on 15 because that's the game that's launching
at least for the next few months until it launches.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, episode 2 of the Brotherhood anime is out.
Was it
tomorrow? I think.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Did you guys watch that?
I watched the first
one.
I enjoyed that. That was a fun little jaunt.
Yeah.
Could go places.
It was the quality that you'd expect of a free YouTube anime.
Yeah.
Which it is.
Yeah.
So fair enough.
Other than that, there wasn't anything major that I was disappointed in not seeing. I mean, I wasn't disappointed about anything except for like how it just kind of ended flat.
I thought maybe they would touch on PS4, K, Neo, because. I'm glad. I'm very glad that they didn't because this just made more sense to do this. But I thought maybe there was a slight chance that they would have because of Microsoft's announcement.
Yeah, it helps.
A way just to
that's a testament to the show because it's like I totally forgot about Xbox, like the new Xbox is coming out, or like thinking of that as like something that they had to try to prove themselves for.
Yeah,
it was like
the games speak for themselves.
Yeah, it's like these games look amazing.
At the end of the day, it's not arbitrary numbers of
it's not about the hardware.
What way you can run and whatever else. Like the game that we play games. So
they're pulling everyone back into reality. Is like just like
this is what it's actually
you may
about,
have like the fancy that you can spend all your money on these random things, but look at what we can do right now.
Yeah,
like why worry about something that we haven't even seen yet, or like when things are so good as they are.
It's the games that they're able to provide, that you can just have fun with.
Yeah.
We look at the 6th generation PS2, Xbox. Xbox was significantly more powerful, but PS2
didn't mean much, right?
It didn't mean it. It didn't mean much because PS2 just had
FIFA 07 on the original Xbox
games,
was pretty good, like pretty good.
But I mean, like with the showing that we had here, and even just like right before this, like people talking about being worried about PS4 being I don't understand why people are talking about how people worried about PS4 being all developers have reached the limit of what they can do on this. We can't go any better. Then Uncharted 4 hits, and they're like, "What? Okay, if this is all we can do."
Then everyone else has ground to make up on
right,
Uncharted.
But I mean, like even if Uncharted 4 is the limit
conference
of what we can do, that's a pretty awesome limit.
Yeah, very true.
But unfortunately, I guess then Naughty Dog are the special exception.
Right, but then the show came out. You see God of War, that was on par with what Naughty Dog did.
The only problem is like the original rumors of that game coming out is in tandem as the showpiece of PS Neo, so it's not something we're going to hear about yet.
But still, and then like this Insomniac with Spider-Man,
that looks like an original.
Amazing. You see every single stitch of his costume from any perspective. Like if you look close enough, you can see the fabric of what he's. It's the whole time.
Looks sharp.
It's just like everything is everything was beautiful, like pretty much on this show. Even like some of the, I forgot the name of that game again.
Days Gone.
Days Gone.
Doesn't bode well for
the name. The name is so bad.
It is.
Like it's just bad.
It's so forgetful.
Exactly. Because I've forgotten it 6 times.
What I think is funny about that game is obviously you end on a gameplay note and you show, look, we have like 300 zombies and they're coming from all directions. It's like you literally are coming off the back of this really fun-loving trailer for Dead Rising, which we can assume and infer that it's coming out on PS4 as well. So if you're going to show a detailed aspect of Days Gone, why are you focusing on, wow, there's like hundreds of zombies coming at you when you have a game like Dead Rising that does that in a kind of not original way, but a funner way.
Yeah, a fun, creative way. Just the different ways you can take out the zombies. That stands out.
Candy
more
cane,
than
crossbow.
Days Gone.
Yeah, well, the candy cane crossbow it relates to the fact that you need to commit to whichever side of that spectrum you land on.
Yeah.
With Dead Rising, it's zany, it's wacky, you've got massive hordes of zombies, but the tonal shift between their story trailer for Days Gone and the gameplay demo could not have been starker. I mean, these almost felt like different games.
I mean, you're trying to get across desperation,
that
but
gameplay
kind of
was
falls
not
flat.
what I expected after seeing that
Not
initial
even close.
story
Yeah.
trailer.
Which even had gameplay sections that looked very different. So even within the same game, you're playing kind of a slow, measured scavenging type thing. He finds that can to act as a silencer, and then it becomes like just a mow down enemies Dead Rising thing later. So for a variety of reasons, it wasn't. It was a flat moment of the conference for me. I feel like when we talk about it as, I think it's, at least from my perspective, it's safe to call this show one of the best Sony's ever had and one of the best E3 conferences I've ever seen. Like, one of the best of all time.
The one most finely tuned, definitely.
But it's not perfect. I wouldn't give it a 10. It had the low moments of The Force Awakens. It ended kind of flat. The Crash appearance in Skylanders was cringeworthy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, probably a necessary tack on to just the fact that they were showing the remaster.
They probably just had to,
right,
because of Activision.
And it's become customary to expect that the deluge of indie games for Vita and just a little bit of developer talk. So
also,
I wonder if they're just positioning PlayStation Experience to be the place where they talk more about the indies.
I would imagine so. Yeah, there's definitely something to that.
That makes sense.
Also, no Shuhei Yoshida appearance.
That's
2 out of 10.
Shuei's got a whole 8 points.
Yeah,
It's just like the most heavily weighted thing on the show.
He's so charming.
Even in a day one that already had like diversity and variety. I mean, the Bethesda show is very different from Microsoft, which is very different from Ubisoft. Sony still struck out and had a show that felt totally unique, just in terms of they took the honest transparency and gamers first attitude that they've been building for 2 or 3 years and took that to its logical extremes with just game after game of pure fan service and no real fillers.
It wasn't really a presentation.
Yeah,
Like there was no. It was just like, well, it was Sean Layden and Andrew House, and then Kojima talked for a bit.
Yeah.
This
Those were
press
the only
conference-
three. Were those the only 3 people that took the stage?
Layden House.
I think they were the only 3.
Yes. On
Yeah,
Like
that's not
nobody
fair.
else talked. Like that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you think of all the other shows, like it's just like we have everybody heads from all the places, and like even the past years for Sony, it's
The
like
format of this press conference, as far as I can remember, there's been nothing like it.
Yeah.
Where it's just jam-packed with games. We're not bogged down with PR spiel, marketing talk.
yeah, we're not talking to stockholders, we're talking to gamers.
Yeah, we're
that's
just
all
getting
it
to see
was.
all these games. Everyone leaves home happy.
Yeah.
Extremely
Job
happy.
done, yeah.
Extremely
Right.
happy.
Were there any other things you guys wanted to see that you didn't get to see at the show? Anything?
Gex, I mean,
Always Gex.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they'd show a little Shenmue gameplay teaser.
Oh, that's right.
You
Yeah.
know?
I still think that has a negative kind of aura around it.
Yeah, I think people are still kind of.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a
iffy
perception
on
issue
where
there.
it's going.
I think in terms of absence, to kind of, at least on my thoughts, what was missing. It's not literally the absence of Vita. It's not literally the absence of indies. It felt like there was no state of the union on projects that we already know about, and just like, yeah, here's an update on Shenmue, like you mentioned, or here's, I mean, we did see the Last Guardian trailer, so that's an example of a
So
State of
they
the
did
Union
follow
moment,
that.
but it was it was just new game after new game, it felt like, which is great and awesome, but it does leave some lingering questions about like what Sucker Punch is working on, what's the state of projects like Shenmue and Final Fantasy VII, which you have to wonder maybe they're saving for other events, but it's not like they ran over time or had a show that couldn't have gone on longer.
It was actually pretty short compared to what I thought it was going to be.
It was like a trim 60 minutes, and they've been known for pushing 90 in the last couple years, and nobody's cared.
It was like an hour 20, almost hour 15.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was expecting it to go till 8.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was going to be a 2-hour show.
Hours,
And it's not like anybody's really complained about Sony's shows being long because they've been that great and they've had the content to fill them.
Oh, yeah.
So this was just a bit of a departure, and for whatever reason, maybe they didn't want to exhaust us with too many awesome debuts.
Right.
Yeah.
It was lean, clean. It was
Lean, clean, and one of their best, I would say. One of their best. So how does the rest of E3 week live up to today and live up to tonight?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Feels like I've already been here for a week.
It does. I know. I feel
I
exhausted.
can't believe this is only our second day here, but a lot of excitement, a lot of cool reveals. So
Yeah.
Far more to come.
Right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. So, yeah. I don't even know how long, Adam, what's the time we got on there?
Yeah, check that.
It's locked itself. I'll have to log
Oh, we can't see it. Anyway,
That's how long. That's how long.
This has been a very massive
nearly 2 hours, I think.
podcast. I thought it feels like we went over, but maybe
I thought about trying to grab like my bottle of saline for a quick eye squirt at least a couple times.
But yeah, I'm sure you all out there have a lot of opinions on the Sony press conference too, and your favorite games. So let us know in the comments what you think your favorite showing was, how you thought about the show in general compared to last year, and
yeah, for sure.
just compared to the other conferences this year. I think it was easily the best again. Like it's just ridiculous that to say that without any sense of irony.
Yeah.
Or
I think it's always the fact that
feeling,
like Microsoft in the morning, they're always at a handicap. Just
the positioning of it. But
yeah,
That's a tough time. It is.
In fact,
I mean, there have been years when Sony had just completely, dropped the ball. Giant
like
crabs.
2 years ago was not the best either, and even, but just like it's just ridiculous. They know they finally know how to talk to their audience, and it's just so awesome these last 2 years and so refreshing.
And if anything, the absence of PlayStation Neo just, there was negativity of that announcement, those rumors leading up to the conference, and the absence of it is a reaffirmation of that fact that they know what their audience wants. They know what
listening.
They're listening.
I appreciate that most about Sony this generation is that they're listening to their fans too.
Except we can't change our names.
don't you? Actually, I like.
They're listening. They hear it.
They hear it.
They are
They're
still listening. Yeah.
Right.
But it's
Would you rather have cool games or be able to change your name?
And at the end of the day, they know what has earned them their place on the throne of console gaming. They know what has brought them back to that point, and that's a certain degree of humility, a certain confidence, but a confidence that's earned, a confidence that's backed by game after game after game from properties and studios that we recognize. And it says a lot that the PlayStation faithful in the crowd, and even those watching at home, like these names, these developer names, are really starting to be recognized. Like when you see Santa Monica's logo appear, although it came after the God of War trailer in this case, that actually really means something.
It's still got a
when
big round of applause. Like God of War,
exactly.
God of War got a round of applause, and then Sony Santa Monica got a round of applause.
Yeah, and that speaks. That's just the talent of these developers is really becoming apparent, and Sony's doing a lot to put them at the forefront and and give them that place. So
yeah, it's awesome. We'll try to wrap this up again so we don't keep talking, but yeah, thanks for watching / listening to our reaction podcast for episode 31 of PlayStation Fix for Sony press conference. And it was, man, what a ride.
Absolutely, man.
That was what a way to kick off the start of E3 week, really, going forward. So yeah, let us know what you thought of the conference, favorite games, moments, all that stuff going forward, what you wish would have made an appearance. And stay tuned all week on PSU.com, on our YouTube channel, on Twitch for some stuff in the future. Social media,
Twitter,
Ernest social media guru here. Going to be updating, live tweeting, all that stuff.
Great stuff, by the way. Great job on that.
So yeah,
I almost wanted to poke you and be like, Ernest, watch. This is really cool.
But
Force Awakens was your moment.
We'll have all the coverage you'll ever want or need for E3 2016 this year. We'll have tons of impression videos coming out throughout the week. We got a lot still lined up that we got to crank through, in the first 2 days here. So yeah, stay tuned for more stuff, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.